Small businesses are waiting to feel the effect of President Donald Trump's executive order imposing a 25% tariff on imported steel and aluminum. The VOA's Michelle Quinn has the story.
It's canning day at Temescal Brewing in Oakland, California. Today, workers will pour craft beer into 6,000 aluminum cans. Next month, these cans will likely be more expensive. President Donald Trump recently signed an executive order raising tariffs on steel and aluminum. Imported aluminum will face a 25% tariff, up from Trump's 10% rate during his first term in office. Steel imports will also face a minimum 25% tariff, as Trump said he would no longer exempt any countries from his 2018 duties.
This is the beginning of making America rich again.
The Trump administration aims to boost U.S. manufacturing, particularly the U.S. steel and aluminum industries, which have struggled against cheaper imports. About a quarter of the steel used in the U.S. is imported, much of it from Canada and Mexico. The U.S. also imports about half its aluminum, mostly from Canada. But other industries are anticipating they will likely have to pay higher prices while domestic steel and aluminum production gets up to speed.
We could see a renaissance, if you will, for California and the U.S. Steel and aluminum industries, which would be a very good thing for our economy. The negative impacts are felt by everyone else.
Those could include increased costs that cut across many industries, he said.
Steel and aluminum are ubiquitous. They're everywhere. They're needed everywhere. Construction, building factories, just the impact. Cars is another good example. We need it in our everyday lives.
Here at Temescal Brewing, the focus is on getting beer canned and out. Over the past decade, craft beer, which used to be primarily delivered in glass bottles, shifted to aluminum cans, making breweries vulnerable to tariffs.
You know, for a lot of small places, it could be being open or closed due to, tariff rising and everything. It's not something that we're stoked on.
This small brewery is part of a global trade ecosystem. Its malt comes from Canada, for example. The possibility of a bigger trade war worries its chief executive.
These things scare us because I think that we already are up against some significant headwinds. And now if we throw suddenly our supply chain is going to get a lot more expensive, that just becomes an even bigger threat.
The U.S. tariffs on imported steel and aluminum are scheduled to go into effect on March 12th. Michelle Quinn, VOA News.
VOA's Jessica Stone is still live with us. Jessica, all of this is happening as inflation here in the United States, it's still not under control. Can you talk about that for us?
Sure, and of course that's something that Americans are still feeling keenly. We talk a lot about the price of eggs, as you well know, but if the price of these other goods goes up, it will not help the consumer price index, which of course rose 3% in January from a year ago. Housing prices are still rising, services are still expensive, unemployment is still low, which means people are still spending money, which is driving up prices as well. But we're just 30 days into the Trump presidency. We haven't seen the impact or the passage of any Trump tax cuts, or some of the other deregulation plans that he has announced. And the impact of those could well also bring down inflation. So we are still 30 days in, looking for that impact. But of course, everyone watching the impact of Trump the tariffs, as well as other actions from this White House on the price of goods, because that's a huge part of how Americans vote and why they voted for this president.
And this time last week, we at WION were still trying to understand the impact of the Trump administration's proposed reciprocal tariffs. Ultimately, the government will study the issue and make recommendations to the president about what those tariffs should look like. Have we seen any impact in the market or the global economy, about these proposals themselves?
We actually are starting to see some protection being implemented by other governments that anticipate that these tariffs will hit their economies hard. First, the White House has signaled some key areas to watch in their own fact sheet. Ethanol from Brazil, agriculture and motorcycles from India, digital services from Europe, and autos from Europe. All of those noting that they could be impacted specifically by this concept of reciprocal tariffs. Analysts note that the administration does appear to be moving away from a model where they're going to tariff everything across the board reciprocally to some targeted tariffs. Now, who's reacting? South Korea has already just announced a $250 billion trade policy to support its exporters in the face of these tariffs. The EU is also engaging more stockpiling and production subsidies to cushion the blow. So we are seeing reaction already in the global economy. The first set of trade reports is due to this White House in April. That is the first opportunity that those impacted inside the United States will have to make the case to the White House that they should either have an exemption or a waiver, or that they will experience some pain as a cause or a result of these reciprocal tariffs. Susan?
Great. Thank you so much for all of that. VOA's Jessica Stone joining us live from the White House. Jessica, have a lovely weekend. For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.